Hey everybody, welcome back to Channeling Chavez. I have you son of a bitch.
I'm so sorry.
I'm keeping this in.
I gotta move this.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
that's
that's
right.
right.
Yeah.
I gotta move this.
Okay, that is a good
idea.
point.
I'm sorry.
Maybe my bag too over in the
Oh,
corner.
wow.
Yeah.
Catch, man. I didn't even catch that. I was too busy
Yeah.
thinking about the audio.
This is so unprofessional.
no,
sorry,
you're
man.
totally fine.
Man.
Look,
Let me
this is-
adjust
I
this
just-
chair.
I just
This
saw
isn't
it
the
when-
Joe Rogan podcast yet. So,
That's okay. You're getting there.
yeah.
This is
We're getting there, right?
We're
definitely-
professional.
we're-
Professional.
And my shoes are untied.
this is the our fourth episode, Ryan. So give us a break, man.
No,
This
you're
is-
totally fine.
everything's
You guys have
falling
nothing to worry
apart.
about.
Everything's falling apart now.
The ceiling starts peeling off.
Yeah. The roof just collapsed.
Mr. James.
Hey everybody, we're back with Channeling Chavez, and I'm here with Ryan Connor. He is a ghost investigator, a seeker, and a former karaoke superstar. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. That describes me perfectly.
You know what? That'd be funny if we just have this whole podcast about your karaoke experiences.
It would be fine with me. Trust me. I
Which-
could talk forever.
Which one was your go-to song?
You know, I did a lot of Sublime songs.
Oh, okay.
And surprisingly, like 90s R&B.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, so you and I are both from the 90s.
Yes.
So, you know, I really dig a lot of those songs. Did you do any other genres besides R&B? Please say
So a little bit
grunge.
of Foo Fighters.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
or like
awesome.
Nirvana. Yeah, I did some Nirvana.
Oh, heck yeah, that's
Absolutely.
awesome. So Ryan, you and I have talked before about some of your experiences regarding ghostly phenomena, poltergeist activity, and I was pretty mesmerized by everything that you were telling me. So, like, let's go back to, because your experiences go back to childhood, right? So let's start.
Yes.
Obviously, let's start there, right? Do you have an earliest memory, or do you have, something to how this all began?
I do have a couple early memories to talk about. I will start with actually my grandma.
Okay.
She was actually the first person to talk to me about something unexplainable happening. And what she kept having was her husband passed away, and she would get phone calls, again, landlines at the time, and she would pick up the phone and someone would say, "Hi, Madeline."
Oh wow.
And she swears to me that it was her deceased husband. Moving on, from my grandmother, and that's why I told you this has gone on for a couple generations.
Sure.
My parents, we lived in, this is actually before I was born. We lived in Saginaw, Michigan, which is just outside of Detroit. Former logging town, kind of run down now, but a lot of old houses. And they both woke up at the same time, which is very unusual for my parents. They sleep really hard. And they heard heavy footsteps walking up the stairs. So they both just looked at each other like, what is going on? And at the same time, they look over at the door, and there's a little girl standing at the door. Yet they were heavy footsteps. So this was when my sister was maybe 2, this is right before I was born. My dad gets up to go put her to sleep, and she just disappears. And my dad goes and checks on my sister. She is dead asleep in her crib. It scared them so much that they actually called the police.
Oh, wow.
The police came over. It was in winter, so there was no signs of forced entry. Outside, the snow was fresh. It had snowed. There were no footprints in the snow. So I had been told about things like this before I even had my own experiences.
So when you were a kid, is that when they started telling you about what was happening, or was it until later on in life?
It was later on in life, Actually, me and my mom were just talking, and I know I would have these weird intuitions, but finally I just talked to my mom, and I was like, this is another thing that happened to both of us. And I said, "Mom, I keep hearing you scream my name in my sleep." And she like, her jaw drops, and she's like, "I hear you scream my name in your sleep."
And this is recent?
No, this
Oh,
was
this is a
this
long
was a
time ago.
while ago.
Okay.
I'm going even before the main issues started
Okay.
happening. But that's kind of how we started thinking. Like there were some unusual things happening. None that we were so we were so convinced that it was absolutely of a ghostly nature.
Mhm.
Besides what my parents experienced, they're pretty convinced on that one. So.
Yeah. The incident with the little girl and your parents, did they start experiencing more things after that?
No, that's actually the surprising part is that is the one and only ghost experience they ever had.
Did they ever tell you like what they think that was about or where she came from?
I would say after 18, maybe going into my 20s, they talked about this a lot. Mostly because me and my sister were getting into this. We were exploring abandoned locations in Chicago and Indiana, all the way up to Ed Gein's in Wisconsin. So we were doing this, and they found out. We were doing it behind their back at first,
Sure.
but they found out, and they continued to talk about that scenario and what happened. And I would have to say that my parents are believers in things like this, but also yet remain a little bit skeptical as well. So
When did you start getting into like ghost investigating? And well, no, I shouldn't say ghost investigating. When did you start getting into the topic of ghosts or paranormal?
yeah, sure. So I would have to. I'm trying to think. It was right shortly after I got my license. So I would say late 16, early 17 is when we started doing this. So
Yeah.
back in the dinosaur ages.
Yeah. And you would do like urban exploring with your
Urban
with your
exploring,
sister.
yeah. It didn't start off as like we were seeking paranormal necessarily. But then, the internet was getting really big at the time. So there were angel fire pages of people making, these haunted lists of locations. And we were like, yeah, let's do it.
Angel fire pages.
Yes.
None of the young audience is gonna know what the heck that is, but I know exactly what. Those were great, weren't they?
HTML all the way. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Urban exploring. Did you ever go to the Damon Silos?
I did not that particular.
Okay. Yeah, I know a lot of people that went over there, and I've tried a couple times, but it was always patrolled by the police.
That was the problem we usually had. Like when it comes to like Bachelor's Grove, they're really strict there.
Yeah, they are.
The place that we started exploring that we would go back to on a weekly basis, we were just enamored with this place. It was called Garrett Durson Mental Asylum, and it was for children, but not just children that had mental health problems, also children that might have had drug addictions or just were unwanted, poor. They also called it Maryville Center for Complex Children. So they had changed the names along the way, which is kind of mysterious if you think about it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And that Maryville has actually continued on with other locations to this day. They still have.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. When you would urban explore, did you ever come across anything bizarre?
I'm going to go back to the first experience I ever had. So it was EVP related. And when you would go to Garrett Durson, it was a good mile walk from your car. Which for the city, that's pretty unusual.
Yeah.
But we were by the playground, and we, were asking if we could help them in any way or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And then when we played it back, we heard "Take Care of Caroline," and it was a kid.
Oh, wow.
And I just remember thinking, like, oh my God.
How clear did that come through?
As clear as me and you speaking right now.
Wow, that's awesome.
And it was also analog. This was not a digital recorder. This was a tape in a recorder. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I went to this one location, kind of exploring this abandoned place, and there was a homeless man that came out, and he starts yelling at us, and we're like, okay, well, we're far enough away from him, but then like a bunch of them just started coming out of nowhere and circling us.
That also happened to us at Garrett
did it?
Durson.
Yeah.
Yes. And it terrified me enough where I didn't ever go back again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had like a switchblade or something pulled, and I was just like, this might be a little sketchy.
Yeah,
We did go back to the grounds a lot after that, but we never went back inside the building.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I kept going back just for that reason. But so when you were a kid, when did things start happening to you?
So when things really started happening, I'm gonna have to fast forward a little bit past when we were exploring,
Okay.
because I'll be dead honest with you. I had some things that I don't know, like that I had some really strange, very clear nightmares that were very related to things that were going on in my life as a child. But I don't know whether to consider those things paranormal or not.
Okay.
When things really started speeding up, I would say would be in my 20s, after the military. When I was in the Army, I worked in Washington, D.C., and our job was to both bury fallen soldiers and pick the people coming back up from the war. So we were at a lot of funerals. Our base alone, Fort McNair, one of the oldest bases in the country, very haunted as well.
Oh wow.
Anyways,
What were you in the military?
what was that?
What were you in the military? What
I was
branch?
I was an infantry by trade, but we were what's called the old guard. So it's different duty. We would do stuff like guard foreign dignitaries coming in from other countries.
Interesting.
We did full honors funerals. So I did both, handing the flags over to the deceased relative, all the way on up to 21 gun salute. I was on the drill team for a while. There's just a lot of different things that we did.
A lot of thank you for your service. A lot of respect for those guys because my grandfather was in the World War II, and I remember when he passed away. I mean, the man looked my grandma in the eyes and said, I'm so sorry for you, and like gave her this like nice little speech, but like it was hardcore, and it was just so appreciative. Our whole family. So you did that, correct? And like, man,
It was the hardest
Yeah.
thing I've ever done in my life.
I could
would
only
have to say.
imagine. Yeah, I could only
Yeah.
imagine.
Because this is a job for you, but this is this person's the worst day in their life.
Yeah.
So you have to handle it as such.
Well, then I gotta ask then, because you said that things started to pick up, ghostly wise after the military. Do you think there's any connection there?
So here is my theory, and again, like we spoke about, I'm still very confused about what went on, and which is why I've continued on as a ghost hunter, a paranormal investigator. I want to know like what happened. After I got out, there was some PTSD issues. There was some depression, things like that. I did get married. I have an ex-wife,
Yeah.
but we were only married for a short amount of time, about 2 years. And then after we divorced, it got even worse. Excuse me. So I would actually, for a while, I moved back in with my parents. And that's when it really started.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if it's because my energy level was just so down, and I was so down on my luck and
Right.
just feeling awful. It seemed like the worse I felt, the worse the experiences would get, and the worse the things that were happening to me would get.
Yeah. And what are some of the things that you were experiencing?
So we'll start from the beginning. There's so many.
Right. Yeah.
Like I had told you before, these things were happening not just like occasionally. This was like an every other day thing. Like if I had a day in between, it was great because I could get some sleep.
Wow.
But it started off with just orbs, and I know people in the paranormal community are like orbs, probably dust or bugs or this or that. But there was no cameras,
Sure.
so I'm in. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm in my sister's room. She had moved down into the basement because she also moved back home. So I'm in my room and I start seeing these lights zipping around my room, and I'm like blinking my eyes or thinking that they're coming because it would happen during the day. And I noticed that even after I closed up the windows, like I completely covered the windows, I would still see these orbs. And they weren't really big. They were small, but bright, and they would like zip around the room. And I think I told you this, my dog would sleep with me every night because it would continue on into the evening. And the one time where I finally started to realize maybe there's something going on here is I woke up, felt really weird in the room. It was like really charged. And I looked at my dog, and my dog is watching these orbs zip around the room. His head was following them.
Did you see the orbs as well?
Oh, yeah.
When he saw them, did you see them too?
Yes.
What color?
These particular ones were just like a bright white. These ones were small, and we'll get into the other one. But these ones were bright and they were small. Yeah, they just kind of had their own flight path. There was no doubt I was seeing it. And then what really hit me was I had moved on to the bathroom, just brush my teeth or whatever, and I would see them in the bathroom as well, where there was no windows. So there's just no way for anything to.
Right.
That was what really hit me, and I was like, something is going on.
Plus, you're staring right at it, so that it's not like, okay, these aren't outside lights, these are not insects, like these are clearly something, like something is taking place, and
yes,
and so they're orbs. They're just orbs that are bright colored. At this point, they're white, correct?
I would call them white. Just like these ones felt like they emanated light. They were really small. Yeah. Not like you would see in the episodes of whatever your favorite show is or whatnot. They were on the smaller side, but clearly there. You could look right at them. It wasn't out of the corner of my eye or I'm imagining things, I looked right at them.
Yeah. So all this is taking place, and you're seeing these orbs, and how often are you seeing them?
So I would see them almost every day. Sometimes they would be not there, and I would be expecting them to be there. Where are they? Are they gone now? Is it over? But yeah, I would say at least 75% of the days I would see this.
And how many of them would you see at a time?
That's a great question. I would say if I have to remember, just one at a time.
Okay.
But the way it would zip around, I mean, it could very well have been more than one. Yeah, I won't get into that yet, but yes.
No, was there any commonality to their trajectory, or was it just random?
That is another way that I confirmed that it was actually happening, because the trajectory was always different. They had a flight path that they were going in. When I told my sister about this, she's like, oh, okay. You've been to too many haunted locations, or abandoned buildings. But I looked at her one time after I saw one, and I said, did you see that? And she's like, yeah, I saw it as well. And I said, don't say anything. I had her go in another room with a piece of paper and write down exactly what she saw and what it did. And it was a dead-on match to what I had just saw. So that was all the evidence I really needed at that point to know that something was happening.
So before that, she hadn't seen anything. Nobody has.
We had pictures of myths and stuff from haunted locations, EVPs, things like that. But as far as actually seeing something, looking straight at it, no one had that yet.
And this would take place just at your home.
Just at my home, only at my home.
Okay, so that's interesting. When you would leave the home, it wouldn't happen.
Correct. We'll get into that as well later, but I did move 3 times, and it did follow me as well.
Okay. So did at any point the orbs escalate to something else?
Absolutely. So after the orbs, I felt like the more attention I paid to them, I would even I was starting to feel like I was losing my mind, because I would talk are you there? Who is that? Things like that.
And was this out loud? You would start talking.
I would talk out loud.
Okay.
Yes. I don't know how else to describe it. I was trying to make logic out of what was happening that I couldn't find logic in.
Yeah.
So we'll move on. My bed, I would sleep with my dog. Like I said, he saw it. I watched him look at it. One night, my bed's kind of shaking, and my dog would kind of run in his sleep, and it would make the bed kind of shake a little bit. And one night, I go to feel over for my dog, because it was kind of more than usual, and my dog is not in the bed. So my bed was shaking by itself. We at that point the next day, I had talked to my parents. I'm like, were you guys shaking the house or like what was going on? And I didn't want to tell my parents, that I was experiencing this quite yet. But we couldn't figure out why. And that happened a couple times.
Mm. And when your dog was, what's the connection with your dog? And because it wasn't your dog that was moving to bed.
Correct. My dog
Okay.
was not there on the
Okay.
night where the bed was moving. There was no dog. Middle of the night, 2 a.m, nothing going on. No earthquakes. We're in Illinois, it wasn't violently shaking my bed, but it was shaking my bed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how often would that happen?
Very rare on that one.
Okay.
Only a couple times.
Yeah. And then so what else happened at home?
So there is a whole lot to go into on this. What I would notice as far as my what I would pay attention to is it seemed to be attracted to things where there were metal or electricity. I noticed, and when this happens so much, you start to notice little tiny fluctuations.
Mm-hmm.
So I would notice the TV would make this sound. It was like a cracking sound, like almost like the TV was shifting, which, TV, like maybe you could do that, but it would always be followed by something else happening. So what I would start hearing, I started hearing things too. And let me just interject here.
Sure.
I'm not crazy. We had myself checked out because I really wanted to find logic. That I hoped that was the case.
Right.
Because it just would not stop. This was something that was happening almost every day. So anyways, I would have tin cans that I would leave on my bedside stand, and it would tick, 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 and you would see the can kind of like moving a little bit.
Yeah.
That was very common. I would say weekly or biweekly thing.
Okay.
Moving on, I told you this as well. I think I would see what I would say. This is the only way I know how to describe it is distortion in the air. So I would see, like, let's say you're looking through saran wrap, okay?
Yeah.
Like it would just be free floating distortion in the air.
Okay.
I've never heard of anyone else experiencing this.
Yeah.
After a while, I started getting really brave. For a while, I was just like, go away. I don't want to be anywhere near you. But after it happened more than once, you start to get you're just so used to it, So I would go and I would just it wouldn't move. I could look right at it. And I would slowly put my arm into this distortion in the air, and it would kind of dissipate, but then my hair on my arm would stick straight up.
Interesting.
And as it would dissipate, I would see the hair moving up my arm, going down here, going down my leg.
Wow.
So you could actually feel something moving, and it was cold and it was static. Like
Yeah, I was gonna say that's like a static charge. That's exactly what it seems like it is.
I had there was a couple shows out at the time, but I had never heard of this. Like I've heard of like the whole static thing and the cobwebs. That's legit.
Yeah.
It feels like something's tickling the back of your neck, like a spider fell on you or something.
Right.
I would feel that a lot.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. So when so now you're experiencing static electricity. So it just seems like things are just escalating little by little. I mean, is it fair to say that it was happening gradually?
At first, it was very gradual. In the end, it was very abrupt. And I will say that the more attention I gave it, the more things that would start happening, and the more intense they would happen. I would have to say, if I had to choose, it's really hard to draw the timeline because realize this was in my 20s.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a dinosaur now, but I would hear a conversation too, and it was always a man and a woman. And I would I would try to hear so much what they were saying. Sometimes you could tell in the tone of their voice that they were kind of arguing with each other.
Sure.
But I could never hear the words that they were saying. And it was just out of earshot. Like I'm talking, if it were just a hair louder, a decibel louder,
Yeah.
I would be able to hear what they were saying.
Now, I've actually experienced this, to be honest with you. I was investigating a place in Wisconsin, and I heard a woman talk in the room that I was in, but I couldn't make out anything that she was saying. And then once I acknowledged it out loud to the person I was with, it dissipated. So,
Absolutely.
is that kind of what you experienced?
Very similar,
Yeah.
but I never would say anything out loud.
Yeah.
I just would hear it, and that's kind of a little bit more spooky to me, just because it sounds like there's two people that are either above me or somewhere around me, and I can never really tell where it was coming from.
Yeah.
Like, I would rack my brain, like, what is happening? Like, where are they coming from? Why is this here? Just things like that. But yes, it included it kept escalating from there as well.
Now, I know it followed you, but while you were at your parents' place, was there any more other types of phenomena taking place?
Yes, there's two. I'll go in with you, and I'll start picking up the pace here for you.
Take your time. Go
The
ahead.
first one I experienced that really freaked me out was I would be sleeping in the bed, and I would feel like being poked, or I would feel like being scratched, like especially on my face. It seemed to be attracted to my nose and my face, and it would drive me up the wall. I couldn't sleep. I would go, nights without sleeping at all. Just because you're always up, like itching your nose or like wondering. I remember finally I kind of kept my eyes open just a little bit because it was targeting my nose, and I saw little sparks coming from my nose where it was happening, little tiny sparks, and it was like you can't miss it. Like you can look at your nose, like if you try to look at your
Sure,
nose,
yeah.
I would see the sparks, so I was like, clearly there's something there.
Well, it makes me think like perhaps like it's the orbs that were like touching your nose and then spark off like when they touched your nose. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And I could be
mean,
totally wrong.
no.
Yeah.
That's a great theory.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to look at you in the face and tell you that this was this.
That's what I want from you.
That's what I'm looking for. That's what I continue to seek to this day, is answers as to what was going on and why it was going on and who and where and all those fun answers.
There's a theme with all your experiences that you encounter with a lot of other people that have had similar experiences. It's electricity. And things. It's the TV, right? Your TV. It's the little sparks on the nose. It's when you put your arm through the static kind of wall, right? So I think that's the theme is with ghosts. I honestly have a feeling that one day we're going to maybe peel back what the nature of ghosts are, and it's going to be done with static electricity, geomagnetism, things like that, because quantum physics. A lot of it is gonna reveal, but because everything you're describing, it's like it seems so scientific. You know what I'm saying?
Very much. I fully believe that it does have something to do with electricity, energy, and I would have to say if there's any theory that's dead on to me, if I could consider any specific one, it would be the quantum physics theory.
Sure.
And I have looked into this a lot. So yeah,
So
I
have
agree.
I, and
I agree.
I want to eventually do an episode.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll even have you back and we'll talk more about it. But let's start transitioning to you leave your parents' home, and then what happens?
So really quick, before we get into that leaving my home, I'm going to tell you the most. This was the craziest event that happened to me there. So I'm sitting on the floor. I moved out of that room. I couldn't be in there anymore.
Okay.
It was so intense that I figured maybe if I moved bedrooms, it would get better. So I would sit on the floor because I didn't have any furniture yet. I had a blow-up mattress. Like it was, I lived with I moved out very young at age, so I didn't have much. Excuse me. And all of a sudden I heard a knock at the door. It was a loud knock, and I was listening to my CD player at the time. And I remember thinking, oh, here comes my dad. You know, he's mad because the music's too loud. So I'm sitting on the floor, and I say, come in. I'm maybe doodling. I used to draw a lot.
Sure.
And 5 seconds later, you know, maybe 10 seconds, I don't know. Nothing happens. Nobody comes in. So I get up, and I answer the door. And in this pitch black hallway, there is an orb, and it's bigger than the other ones I was seeing. It's I would have to say it's maybe about the size of a baseball, maybe a little bigger.
Okay.
This one was different in the fact that it wasn't bright like these other ones I was seeing. It had light to it, but it was a dim light, and it wouldn't emanate light on the walls. So you would think if something's bright in the hallway, right, it's going to give off light.
Yeah.
It did not produce any light besides the light that it had of its own. So I'm standing there staring at it, frozen. I couldn't move. I didn't know. And I've been around this stuff before, but never this close to home.
Yeah. What color was it?
White again.
Okay.
But I guess you could say it was like translucent white, because you could see through it.
I was just going to ask you, yeah, could you see through it? Okay.
Yeah, you could see through it. And it felt like what was an eternity. We had like a stare off. If I had to say this one, I didn't feel any negativity from. It was about 4 feet off the ground, so it made me feel like it might have been like a child or like a teenager. I don't know.
Okay.
But we stared at each other for what felt like an eternity, maybe 4 or 5 seconds.
Sure.
Long time for just looking right at each other, and then it just flew down the hallway. No noise, no sound, disappeared.
In the opposite direction.
Opposite towards where my parents would have been sleeping at the time.
Okay.
And that was the time where I heard a knock, like, and I could tell that this thing had enough energy where it could knock on a door.
Yeah.
So if it can knock on a door, it can do more.
Right.
Yes.
And when it disappeared, did it like fade away, or did it just go to another room?
It went so fast, I couldn't follow it.
Okay.
So after it left, I walked down to my parents' room. Their bedroom door was shut. I opened it. They're snoring, sleeping. I could not trace where it headed, but it headed that way towards their room.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't tell you where it went.
And this is when you were already sleeping in another room, or?
Yeah, I had moved rooms.
Okay.
Yeah, to try to get away from this.
Okay. Wow. And then eventually you move out.
I moved out. Yes, I met another young lady at a bar or something. I don't know. She was just going through a divorce with her ex-husband. Sounds like they had a rough go, so we hit it off. I was also divorced, so yeah, we moved in with each other rather quick. That's just kind of my nature. I don't know, but we moved in
that night at the bar. You just moved in with the. Okay.
It was about a week later. I won't even lie.
You really wanted to get out of your parents, or she was just that hot.
No, maybe, I don't know, but it happened. It happened really quickly.
Yeah.
So the funny thing was, she was moving to Texas, so it was like, it was never planned on it for it to be a long-term thing. It was just like, let's just enjoy each other's company for now. And then finally she's like, why don't you just come with me to Texas? And I agreed. I was like, I don't have anything going on here right now, really. I'm out of the military. I'm divorced. I don't really have, I'm working sales jobs, but nothing like that would keep me where I was. Yeah. And I thought, wow, a fresh start across the country. I could get away from all this.
Right.
Yeah. So it was like, Texas is not my favorite state, but it wasn't even a question to me. It was like, yes, I like you and I want to go with you. So,
yeah. Now, when you were, where was your parents' house?
Gurnee, Illinois.
Okay. So you go from Gurnee to Texas. So you go
2,000 miles.
You go from one really haunted location to another really haunted state, Texas.
Absolutely.
Where in Texas were you living?
San Antonio.
Okay. I actually have family in San Antonio, so
medical center. So
yeah, I know a little bit about the hauntings over there. So yeah, you were in the epicenter of ghosts over there.
Absolutely, and we did explore a lot of the sites there by the Alamo and the famous bar there, where a lot of the presidents had been and things like that. Yeah.
How long did it take for you to be living in Texas where you started experiencing things?
So forgive me, I'm going to back up like
Sure.
a week here.
Yeah.
Before I moved with her, I had moved in with my friend Nathan.
Okay.
I didn't like my parents' house, but not only that, it's just the vibe there. It wasn't for me.
Yeah, and you're
So,
young. You just want to go explore.
You want to be a
yeah.
free spirit.
Yeah.
So it started happening to me at Nathan's too. And I would call her. She had already moved to Texas.
Okay.
But she had told me her views on the paranormal as well, and that she had had experiences. This was fine. What was great to me was I was keeping this locked up to myself. You couldn't talk about this. There was no friends that would believe you. Your parents didn't believe you. It was a very lonely time where you want to look someone in the eye and say, look, this is happening. I'm not making it up, like, please listen to me. But she was one of those people that listened to me, and she had her own experiences and things like that. Anyway, so we talked on the phone. I would call her and say, Christy, it's happening again. And she would kind of walk me through it and like tell me like maybe get out of the house, like maybe take a walk.
And what was happening? The same things that from at your parents?
Much less. This was just the orbs, but just seeing the orbs kind of re-sparked that trauma that I went through in my parents' house.
Like
and I thought,
PTSD.
how did they get me? How did they get here? Like, how did they follow me? So
yeah. And then so you then eventually, how long were you staying at your friends?
not long, 2 weeks.
Oh, 2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah, very, very short amount of time. I had the whole basement, which was not great either.
And you go to live with her, and I'm assuming it starts up right away.
Yeah, it started almost immediately, but the activity changed. We would see a black dog. That was the main activity that I experienced there, which I still wonder because I grew up with a black miniature schnauzer. So I didn't feel any negativity from it, like anything that was out to get me.
Yeah.
But it was there all the time.
Well, it's funny with black dogs. There's a mythology around black dogs throughout the world, and in some parts of the world, it's seen as a bad omen. But then there's other types of mythology that say that black dogs are actually good luck. So
I would have to lean more towards that side. I don't know how much good luck I had from it, but it was something that both of us would look straight at and be like, are you seeing this? Like, and we had a hallway. It wasn't even a very big apartment, but there was a dark hallway. It was like kind of blacked out. Like the light would not reach that area, and that's where we would see this dog sitting. Moving on from that, I would be sitting on the couch with my feet up on the ottoman, and all of a sudden this black thing would just run under my legs, like at the speed of light, like is so fast. And this she also experienced.
Well, that must have been kind of comforting to have somebody experience the same things that you were.
That part of it was comforting. It escalated pretty quickly after that. More to the touching again and the not letting me sleep. I started getting into the message boards online, like talking to people that might have a little bit more information than I did. There were some people that were giving me different theories. I've never been a religious person, but people would send me religious artifacts because they thought it was something negative. So we tried lining blessed salt around where I would sleep.
Yeah.
We tried putting a St. Michael medallion under my bed or the couch or wherever I would sleep. At this point, I was never very into this stuff. Like I said, I was taken out of the church at 3, so I have no idea about that kind of thing.
Right.
But I was willing to try anything at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Make it stop.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what how long did you stay there for?
2 years. I was there for 2 years.
And throughout those 2 years was just on and off things?
No. This was all. It got worse than even at my parents' house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it just changed. Like the feeling changed. The black dog, cool. no problem. Like we had no problems with the black dog, but the touching, I don't touch me in my house, like
Yeah.
and not knowing what it was or where it came from was the worst part. And that was kind of why we didn't make it as a couple. It was too much for her to deal with. And she had come from having her own spiritual experiences.
Yeah.
I won't say spiritual. I will say paranormal because I don't know.
Sure.
But after I left to go back to be around my family because I really didn't have much. She actually broke her lease in that apartment because the energy after I left continued.
Oh, wow.
And she tried moving the furniture around. She tried it's Texas, so there's a lot of spiritualists out there, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
She tried bringing in people, Native Americans, things like that. Just no matter what she did, she couldn't get that energy out of the
Was
apartment.
she upset with you?
Very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we're amicable, which is funny because after I told you about this, I'm like, let's creep on her page and check something out. First post is about paranormal.
Oh, was it really?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Are you still in touch with her?
No, I haven't been. Well, I touched base with her maybe 5 years ago, so
Okay.
not recently.
Okay.
But she's happily remarried, and
Sure.
I'm not gonna mess with
Yeah,
that.
because this was a long time ago.
long time ago.
Yeah.
2011,
Yeah.
2013. Yeah, 2011 to 2013.
Yeah, you should message her. Are you happily married, or what's going on? I don't have any.
I've thought about it.
I'm sure you have.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
She's much older than me. 12 years older than me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but she's really pretty. Like, yeah.
So, okay, this is interesting. So, how old were you both when you moved in?
Let's see. So 2011, what would that make me? So I was 27 or 28,
Okay.
somewhere around there.
So she was in her 40s.
Yes. No, she was 38, so that made me 26.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
that's great.
And then when I left, she had it was just after she turned 40, which
Okay.
was weird to me for a second, but she didn't come off like that. Like she was just
Yeah.
very free spirit, and
yeah,
I was at that age where I was a free spirit, so
it worked out
we
for a while.
we would experience in public people being like, but like for me, I didn't feel that way about it.
Right.
So.
So she was really mad at you, and afterwards you left, and I'm sure she's blaming you, like, what the heck did you bring to my home? All
Yeah.
these other things.
She has this feeling where she won't come out right out and say it, but almost like I ruined a big chunk of her existence at that time, and I really didn't mean to. I was trying to get away from this kind of activity,
Yeah.
and I thought, it was great because I could talk to her about it, and I became. But the problem was I became so obsessive. And it was because it was happening and it was miserable and I wanted it to go away.
Yeah.
So, I would try to like throw back and forth ideas with her. Like, what do you think we could do about this? And we would try everything and it just did not go away.
Yeah. When you left, did you come back to Illinois?
I did. Yes.
And where did you stay? Who did you stay with?
I moved in with my parents for 2 days. When I came back, moved right back out.
Why just 2 days?
I didn't want to be there.
Okay.
I grew up. This is part of why I wonder if this thing or whatever it was that was happening was attracted to like negativity, depression, things like that. When I was around my parents, I did not feel happy.
Okay.
So I didn't stay there too long. I got out pretty quickly and moved in with a friend.
All right. And did the activity follow you to that friend's house?
It did for a
Yeah.
very brief moment. So here's the weirdest thing, and I think this kind of wraps up it perfectly. I'm laying in bed one night, just kind of staring off into space, not sleeping, but not like really cognizant of what was going on. And I experienced the orb again, and I'm kind of looking at it, and it's not there for long at all, maybe couple seconds, and it shoots out the window. The window was right next to my bed. So as I looked out the window, I remember feeling this huge weight just lifted, and I literally vocalized out loud. I said, "That's it. It's over. It's finally over." And I don't know why I knew that. I don't know why it was over or why. You got to understand the timing of this was very peculiar because it didn't match up with any event. There was no like here to here. It came out of nowhere.
Yeah. And then, well, did it stop after that then?
So we've experienced a couple things, but as far as being aggressive and touching and things like that and like making noises, there's some things I skipped in between here, which I knew I would. I was going to do bullet points, but then I'm like, I'd rather just freestyle, so.
Yeah.
But we had also my current, who you met, my daughter's mother, we feel a dog jump up on the bed, and this is not just like, oh, maybe something moved, like maybe it was nothing. This is like a dog jumped up on the bed. You've been around a dog with their wiggling their, wagging their tail and they're wiggling around. We could feel a dog jump up on the end of the bed and like wiggling around and moving its tail. And I looked at Vic and I was just like, you have got to be, do you feel that? And
did she freak out?
No. None of us felt like it was like the dog. It seemed almost like, I don't know, maybe he was watching over me. Like it's hard to tell, but she said I felt it, which was like, it's nice when other people are with you and these things happen.
Right.
Because now you have someone to quantify your story. They can say, yeah, I saw it too. Unfortunately, my sister's not around to talk about the bulk of what happened anymore, but I mean, Christy's still there. I wouldn't ever like bring her back into this, but it's just so funny because when you had talked about your podcast, I'm like, let's see what she's doing. And the first post on her page is a paranormal post.
That's a sign. I'll reach out to her. No, but eventually, because you said that it leaving didn't coincide with anything.
Nothing.
Did it possibly have anything to do with an interchange or no?
There were a couple theories I explored. So here's the funny thing. When you talk about people, when they talk about poltergeist, which is some of the activity that was happening was poltergeist in nature, they talk about it possibly being the energy from a human being, maybe not even like a spirit. I find that hard to believe because of like hearing a man and a woman and all these other things. I did explore that for a while, and I thought maybe my energy is emanating in such a manner that is causing vibrations in the bed, orbs, like things like that. Maybe I'm creating this. I'm in the middle, which I don't know. I don't know.
So that's a really interesting theory because that actually is in the 70s and the 80s. There were parapsychologists, right? They were operating out of like Ryan University, Duke University, and they were creating like experiments in labs to, study ghostly phenomena, sometimes even inducing ghostly phenomena, and a lot of them actually came to the conclusion that yes, this phenomena is real, it's tangible, it's taking place, but it is coming from us, not the dead.
Here's the thing, okay? I would record after record, like, talk to me. Tell me who you are. Tell me why you're doing this. I'm going to tell you, I had so much trouble. We did get I missed this part with you. We would hear whistling a lot.
Oh, okay.
And I'm talking about, like, whistling with tonality. And I easily was able to get that on camera. Like, I'll have to look. My phone was one of those ones you flip where it has the keyboard.
Yeah.
So I don't know how well I'll be able to locate that one. Yeah. But we heard the whistling. And it was not only that. I would hear whistling, and then my sister was down in the basement, right, kind of by the heater, and I would hear her pounding on the heater. She was hearing whistling, too.
Now, this one may be a little bit, I don't know if far-fetched is the right term, but you're talking about these light orbs, and you would see them all the time, and they would even touch you. Mm-hmm. could it possibly be even like fairies?
I have thought about that as well. Here are my theories, okay? I told you one of them. Maybe it's coming from inside of me. I don't know how firmly I believe that. I had told you I spoke on message boards. Some other people were looking into like the visitor theory, that it could be like extraterrestrial. That was one of the more theories that I didn't necessarily buy into. And I don't know why. It just didn't feel right to me.
Sure.
Where was I going with this? Yes, fairies. Yes, because it was such like trickster, like
Yeah.
just messing with me. I think I told you this too. And I don't want to get into this on like a podcast,
Sure.
but I got so annoyed. I got up one day and I'm like, if you don't stop, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
And out of the TV, I hear a very clear man make a sound, and that hit me so hard.
Right.
It hit me hard. Like it was right there. The TV was off.
Yeah.
Nothing. No other people around. Heard it clear as day. Ran out of the room screaming. It woke everybody up in the house. But I did think, looking into like nymphs and fairies, things like that, it would match a lot of the activity that you would see with that. And going along with that, like I said, it appeared to be, if you would look at an orb as, say, the height of a person or a being, it was lower towards the ground.
I always say that with ghostly phenomena, there's several different factors at play. And, one of them was probably you yourself, right? For whatever reason, you have a vibration that is conducive for paranormal activity. But also, on top of that, your state of mind. You were really down in the dumps, right? You were really depressed. You were going through a lot when you were younger. And so that may also have, played a part in what was going on around you.
I think both of those. I feel like I'm both a magnet for these kind of things.
Yeah.
Even taking on physical form with just regular human beings. I have some of these kind of situations, but as well as paranormal in nature, where I feel like I'm kind of like a magnet, or like something's just attracted to me.
Yeah.
I've had, I don't want to like go too far fetched, but I've had humans where I met in public, strangers that have mentioned things that only I would know.
Okay, so that's interesting. Well, you got to get into that though.
Yeah.
So like, what?
Here's the weird part. Like I told you, I was never into like religion or anything like that. But if I would come close to a car accident, like let's go back to Washington, D.C. This is even before any of this started happening. I would like do the whatever they call it, the Lord's Cross. Like, oh, thank God I didn't get in a car accident. If you've ever been to Washington, D.C., it's really tough to drive there. It's a mess.
I hear you.
And so I had someone come and sit down next to me. This was by the train going back. I had missed the last train going back to my barracks. So this guy shouldn't have even been there. He sits next to me, has the most pleasant conversation. And afterwards he mentioned things that I would like say to myself. Now going back to realizing exactly what I said, I honestly couldn't tell you specifics, but he did the,
sign of the cross. Yeah.
The thing, which I just thought was so rare. Maybe, I mean, there might be coincidence, like I said, but for him to both be there, be talking about things that I've said in my past, and then do that at the end was very weird. And he was a very friendly person, a very, very communicative person, very like, just a nice guy.
Okay, that's. Well, before we wrap up, I want to ask you, where are we at with time, guys?
We're at 55 minutes.
Okay.
Oh, good deal.
Okay. I had asked you when we were talking before, have you had any like UFO type experiences? And so what have you experienced with that?
I would have to say, me personally, with UFOs, I couldn't tell you. Well, as far as looking up in the sky, I've seen things, nothing tangible or proof enough where I
Sure.
could look at you in the eye and say, look, I saw something that I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Because I don't know enough about what I would be looking at to justify saying UAP, UFO, things like that. When I look at you and I tell you these paranormal things happen, they happened.
You know, you were saying the people on message boards were telling you that, oh, it could be extraterrestrial related, and you said, well, I don't think so. I know what they're saying because it's a weird phenomena that a lot of times people who frequently see UFOs, their houses are haunted as well, or vice versa. A house may be haunted and somebody may be experiencing a lot of activity, and then they'll go outside sometimes and there'll be a UFO up there. So there seems to be a connection between these different things.
That is a great comment on that, because the gentleman, and I wish I could remember all these people, but the gentleman that would comment on this, out of very few, a lot of people would tell me, delete this, delete that.
Yeah.
Because I just wanted information so
Yeah.
bad, and they're like, well, don't put it out there.
Yeah.
At the time you couldn't talk about this stuff. Like, there was no big community like me and you were having a podcast here. We can speak about this now. Back in this time, one show, maybe, nothing going on, nobody really believing in it, but we have a large community now.
Right.
But the fact that you said that, this guy, he equated anything paranormal with UAP visitors, things like that. He didn't believe in ghostly phenomenon.
And all the ghostly things have kind of died down for you, pretty much, right?
Very much so.
So it's
I do not. I communicate with them ITC, like on Spirit Box, things like that.
Because you and I, we go ghost hunting together.
Yes.
So that's I find that interesting that, like, you've had this experience, you want to know part of it, but you're so curious or fascinated by it that you still go out there to ghost hunt.
And I know it sounds crazy, right? Like I'm a crazy person, but here's the thing. With time going by, you live your life, right? Every year goes by, things change, and then you start thinking about past experiences. And not only do you want to understand your life more, but you want to understand, like, what's next, like, I mean, it amazes me, because what I was experiencing, I have no idea what it was or where it was.
Yeah.
And I want to know.
Yeah.
What was that? Why was that happening? Like, not only that, but, like, I don't want to go there, but my sister passed away. I'm like, I want to communicate with her,
Yeah.
So you go looking to these things, and the fact that you're looking for them at this point, you were fearless then. It sucked. It was not fun, but you were fearless then, you're fearless now, and you just want to know more.
The part I'm so fascinated by about everything that you said is that the phenomenon wasn't the entirety of your life. There wasn't much. Is it fair to say there wasn't much in childhood? There may have been a couple things.
I had some really strange nightmares as a child, but no, nothing clear cut where I could say this was the beginning.
Yeah, so it started, young adult life into middle age, right? And then that was it. And usually that's not the case for a lot of people.
That's what blows my mind.
Usually it starts in childhood and it just keeps going on and on. But that's not the case with you.
No, and that's what confuses me so much, is it started on like a Tuesday, like there was no event that set this off. Matter of fact, I ignored it for a while because I just didn't think it was anything. I thought it was like me seeing things.
I think that's why I was so fascinated by when we were talking before about your experiences, because it's like there is a beginning and there is an end to it. And that is just so rare. So that's why I needed to have you on. And thank you for coming on and sharing your experiences. Because when we were talking before, I know that these were pretty personal experiences for you. So I just really appreciate you sharing it with us. Do you guys have any questions? James? Mike? No, we're good?
My name is Ryan. Sorry.
That's Ryan. That's James.
James, nice to meet you, brother.
Any thought-provoking questions?
Do you have any thought-provoking questions?
What's your favorite color?
That's a great question. You can tell a lot about someone by their favorite color, but blue would be my favorite color, I would say, or black, which is shade.
That's most of my attire right now. So I mean, good.
Exactly. Yes. I wanted to add one more thing.
Oh,
if you
sure.
don't mind.
Yeah.
What was I thinking of? Again, I just wanted to say thank you for letting me get my story out. I'm hoping someone can see this and they can say, that happened to me too, know, like, because this wasn't something I could do. I couldn't approach people and like have support. I had no friends that would like listen to me. And it's great to be able to have a podcast like you're having and, speak freely about this.
Well, absolutely, man, and thank you for coming. And I'm really gonna think about everything you told me, because I'm gonna repeat myself again, because I know I just said it, but honestly, and you already know this because you've talked to people who've had ghostly experiences. There is never a beginning, middle, and end. There isn't. So
I would love to explore that further.
We're gonna explore it together. We're gonna talk about it further. But Ryan, thank you so much for coming, man.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone.